Up All Night
with Dotun Adebayo.
I won't even lie to you. This gramophoning always gives me a headache. And tonight's no different. It's all about the rules of grammar. You laugh.
Ain't that a shame? Or
Yeah,
put that another way, is that not a shame?
No, it's definitely ain't that a shame this time. Our grammarians are Terry Victor and also Neville Gwynn. And what's your feeling about rules of grammar, though? 0500 909 693. Do give us a call and give us your thoughts there. Are there rules of grammar that used to be taught in schools that we just don't know or care about anymore? And does that matter? If we don't care about them, if we don't know about them, if we don't use them anymore, are they now redundant, those rules? Or do you feel that they're sacrosanct just because we don't use them, we don't know about them, we don't care about them, that they're still there, engraved in stone, and we should observe them, if possible, if we've got the education that warrants it? Give us your thoughts. 0500 909 693. We've got David in Manchester in just a moment. Bear with us, David. But John in Woking, first of all, what are your thoughts on this?
Hello, Don, and Neville and Terry. Entertaining programme, as always.
Thank you.
On the whole, I'm more with Terry than Neville. I think grammar should be governed by usage rather than some prescription. For example, I go around splitting infinitives whenever I get the chance, and also using prepositions at the end of sentences. But there are some lines in the sand which things make me physically wince if I hear them. Could of is certainly one of them. I find that just illiterate and ignorant. Another one, between you and I, she told you and I, that makes me, it's like fingernails down the blackboard, that is.
I didn't even know that was wrong. Is it? What's wrong between you and I?
No, you wouldn't say between I, would you? You'd say between me.
Yeah.
Therefore, you shouldn't say between you and I, it's between you and me.
Right,
Isn't it, Neville?
Let's keep this between you and I. I always say between you and I. Gosh,
the objective case.
But why didn't anybody tell me that was incorrect grammar? Why didn't you tell me that before, Neville? It's too late now.
I think I tell you over a second programme or so. After a preposition had the objective case, you wouldn't say, I do it on, I'm going to put this on I. You say, I'm going to put this on me.
But John,
and after a preposition, whether it's between or on or under or whatever, you have the objective case. I is the nominative case. Me is the objective case.
But John, look,
acoustic if you want it, yeah. I mean, it's basic grammar, that is.
It is to you, and I accept that I'm doing it wrong. Don't get me wrong in this. However, when you've been doing it for a long time, it just stays with you. And I'm just wondering, is it a big deal because you understand exactly what I mean, and it means the same thing, doesn't it?
Bad habits. Bad habit should be corrected.
It's a bad habit, but I'm saying it's stuck now. But for you, John,
if you've got a bad habit, just try and get out of it, Don. Do your best.
I will. David. I promise you I will. But John, does it alter at all the meaning? I mean, exactly the same when I say between you and I as you do when you say between you and me.
Yeah, I have to admit with extreme reluctance that if everyone said between you and I'd have to admit that, okay, that's now become the new rule, and the rule book would have to be rewritten. But I hope never to see that day.
What about the splitting infinitives that you take great joy in throwing into the mix?
Well,
give me an example.
That's just an invented rule. I've forgotten who it was, but a couple of 100 years ago, someone with nothing better to do invented that rule. And
was that you, Neville, a couple of 100 years ago?
I protest. Shakespeare never did not split an infinitive even 500 years ago. It's not an invented rule. It's a rule which comes from English. English is basically a Germanic language, and German does not normally put infinitives, split them apart.
That's why the Queen speaks such wonderful English, isn't it?
German infinitives don't work like ours. Ours have two words and an adverb or whatever.
You say zu haben in German. Excuse me, Germans do have that. You said zu haben. That's what we're talking about. It is a Germanic usage, which is actually Shakespeare got right, Chaucer got right. It's not just 200 years ago.
You can't base English on what other languages do. English is it.
I'm saying that's how it grew up. That's why it's the way it is. I'm saying it has a logic to it, which you were denying. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying there is a reason for it. You said it was some silly old fool just invented it. Completely untrue. It's always been part of English.
Now,
I find unsplit infinitives can often sound stilted.
I find that to boldly go where no one has gone before is just
exactly.
Perfect
boldly
way
to go would sound stilted to me.
Yeah, you see,
you would reorganise the real sentence that it wouldn't sound stilted.
No, hang on a second. No, Neville, John is absolutely right. When people hear on Star Trek to boldly go, as much as it is a split infinitive, he's right when he says simply to go where nobody's gone before would be, slightly trite, considering what the, enormity of space travel was like for people in the 1960s or otherwise,
What you should have said is boldly to go, and if it had been done that way, nobody would have objected to it.
John,
the only reason that you like to boldly go, wait a minute, the only reason you like to boldly go is because you've heard it so often you got used to it. But if you'd heard it the other way, you'd have been totally happy.
Terry, is he right there?
No. There's a couple of things going on there. Firstly, all of these things, you and I and split infinitives, they're a question of aesthetics. They're not a question of rules. They're a question of what sounds right and what you learn to be right.
Yeah.
And because Neville has learned one system to be right, doesn't mean that the system you've learned to be right is wrong. And what John has learned, again, is another one that could equally be right. If we want to go back to the great writers, I was looking this up while you were talking. Samuel Johnson observed that Milton was too busy to much miss his wife. So there's Milton, one of the great British writers,
splitting an
infinitive.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
Another one for you, a certain William Shakespeare wrote, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on." Preposition at the end of a sentence.
Well,
I'm not objecting to that.
Why not?
In the sentence, because they can be necessary. It is not a rule. You can never put a preposition in the sentence.
How come you're so hot on split infinitives, but you're not?
You do not say up with this I will not put, or the thing is that is a rule which people are inventing today, but it's not a true rule.
You're happy with that rule being broken then?
No, I'm saying it's not a rule.
Well,
you're my hero, John. Don't stop.
Hang on.
It's never been
a rule
and
or
it's
not?
not a rule.
Terry, is it a rule or not?
It's a phony rule. I think, wasn't it Churchill who came up with the preposition at the end? It was something like that.
Yeah.
You won't find that rule in any book on. You won't find that rule in any book on grammar.
What do you mean by? Sorry, go on, John.
Split infinitives is an equally phony rule, surely.
No. Split infinitive has a logic to it, and as I say, it is a rule which has existed as long as the English language.
And also, Terry, what is a phony rule as opposed to a rule that's not phony? What is a phony rule?
A phony rule is one that's been made up with unnecessary. It's like the I before E after C and all of those other rules. They were rules to help teach a basic grammar, a simple grammar, but they didn't allow for the flexibility of the way the English language allows us to be flexible.
So what about the rigid rules? Given that the English language allows us to be flexible, what happens to the rigid rules then? Are they there to be broken then to allow that flexibility, you saying?
I think there's different ways we use the language. I always tend to think of language as a spoken communication. And I think, and I'm not trying to put words in Neville's mouth here, I think Neville tends to think firstly in the form of the written and the job letter type English language. So we have...
Excuse me, there's no such word as firstly, I don't think.
Probably not. You caught one at last. Thank you. I'm throwing these in as hard and fast as I can.
Not firstly.
Yeah, not firstly. Thank you for doing that.
Anymore there's a word called fastly. There's no word called firstly either.
Okay. John in Woking, thank you for the call, by the way. David in Manchester, you've been waiting patiently. Appreciate it. Good evening. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to speak to you.
Yeah, the one that annoys me the most is the ones that managers always use, like at the end of the day, and also basically, use repetitively, and the use of the word result when they say we're going somewhere to play and we're going to get a result. Well, if you get beat 10-1, you've got a result.
Yes, it's true. Very, very true. Is that necessarily breaking any rules of grammar, though, Terry?
Well, I suppose you are with result, but only if you're going to take grammar as a very prescriptive thing.
No, why are you breaking a rule? A result is a result whether you lose or win.
Because the implication is there's a word missing there. You're going to get a positive result is what's being suggested by dropping the word.
But then you would add that in, wouldn't you? But here, just to say to get a result, once you take out the word positive, there's no implication. It's just simply saying we will get some kind of result.
That's not how it's said, and that's the whole thing about communication. But the stress, you know what's meant by the way. We're going to get a result means we're going to get something positive.
The reason that would be poor grammar, Neville, I would have thought was the fact that you are going to get a result if you play a match. So there's no need to say we're going to get a result because it's already given that you're going to get a result, whether it's a draw, a win, or lose. So it becomes redundant, doesn't it? The statement itself becomes redundant.
I wouldn't call it poor grammar, but poor vocabulary. In other words, you're just misusing a word and you're getting the word wrong. It's just rather a pity because you're weakening your command of the language.
And why does it bother you to hear it, David?
Because it's incorrect. It's imprecise.
But they're saying that. Well, at least Neville's saying that it's not incorrect.
It is incorrect. It's bad vocabulary, not bad grammar.
Yeah, but you're saying, but we're talking about grammar today, and I'm saying that.
Then you've got to leave it out because it's got nothing to do with grammar. You just used the word wrong. Like you used 2 + 2 = 5 when you meant 2 + 2 = 4.
But to say the sentence, we're going to get a result. There's no poor grammar in that, is there?
It's just bad vocabulary. You used the wrong word.
But no rules of grammar have been broken.
No rules of grammar have been broken.
Right, and remember this phone-in is about the rules of grammar. And I'm just trying to say to David, look, there's no rules of grammar broken. Let people say it. They might have poor vocabulary, but let people use it.
I think it's a fatuous thing to say.
It is. I would grant you that. However, the language does allow fatuous statements, doesn't it, Terry?
Yes. And so it should. Yeah. And in fact, it's not fatuous. We know what is being said. So there is a purpose.
We infer what's being said.
But
because you've already accepted that we don't know that they mean we're going to get a positive result unless you throw in the word positive.
By allowing its usage, you're making a virtue out of a vice.
In what sense?
You're making a language out of a usage.
No, by allowing its usage, by accepting its usage, you're making a virtue out of a vice by incorrect vocabulary choice.
So it's a vice, Neville. Would you agree with that?
It's a disaster. Like even if you get that one right, the next time there will be a misunderstanding because you haven't used it. In other words, if you get into the habit of using language incorrectly, you are going to miscommunicate or misthink or both. That's the problem. You dare not start because of what it might lead to.
But it's not breaking any rules.
And the other expression
is breaking the rules. It's using a wrong word in the wrong place.
Of grammar. David, sorry?
The other expression at the end of the day, isn't that an example of circumlocution?
Look, at the end of the day, it's an expression that I use all the time because at the end of the day, it kind of makes sense. You know, it's a kind of a punctuation. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Terry...
Like to say instead of in conclusion. I mean, it's
that
very
sounds so boring. I mean, can you...
You're going to give up at the end of the day, I think, aren't you?
At the end of the day, I probably won't because in conclusion, sounds a little bit
sense.
And it also sounds a little bit too. It's not me. You know what I mean?
It's not.
You know what I mean?
Why don't I say when push comes to shove, which means much the same.
Oh, I like that. I like when push comes to shove. Can we say that instead, David?
Yeah. At the end of the day, you probably think of the song.
Yeah, it's true. But when push comes to shove, rather than in conclusion, would you mind if I chose that instead?
I would.
Why?
Because it's a silly cliche.
It's a cliche. But is there anything wrong with it grammatically? We're talking about rules of grammar here.
Nothing wrong with it grammatically.
When push comes to shove.
Use the expression in final analysis.
Oh, right. This one I don't understand at all. In the final analysis, rather than in the first analysis or in the middle way through analysis. No, you laugh, Terry, but, you know, in the final analysis, people use that to suggest that they've gone through all the different permutations. They are now the expert because they've seen the final analysis. It's to give them some kudos in any conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
it just means ultimately, doesn't it?
Yes. People misuse ultimate all the time as well.
But even saying ultimately, you're trying to say that I will have the last word on this because I know what I'm talking about.
No, you're not. You're just saying this is We now come to the end of the discussion before we make our decision.
But you see, you're making that conclusion. How could you possibly know if this really is ultimately? Because somebody else could pipe up and say, "Well, actually, I've got another point to make." To add.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Or rather, now me.
I see what you mean. Well, then you've misused ultimately, and unless there are times when you can actually say it because you know it and everybody can see it's ultimately. But so, if you say ultimately when you've got no right to say it, then indeed you've got it wrong.
David, thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. You know, you've twisted us one way and then another with your series of issues there, and fair point to you. Julia in Telford, you've got one or two other grammatical issues as well. Go ahead.
Good morning, Doctor. I'm listening to this, and you know there are so many things that have cropped up tonight that are nails down the blackboard. Would have.
I don't like the sound of that. Oh, yeah, hurting my ears. Those
the
nails.
One that really gets me, and it's in the newspapers all the time. Different to, as opposed to different from.
Yeah. Okay, we've had this.
Similar to, different from.
Tonight.
Yeah, no, not tonight. But
okay, sorry. As I say, sorry if you have.
No, not at all. You're welcome to, even if we had it tonight. Give us your thoughts. Why does it bother you?
I mean, all right. Let's just say, have I been correctly taught? Which is correct?
Yeah, you have been correctly taught.
It is. Which is it?
Have I been correctly taught?
No. Have I been correctly taught? Is it different to, or is it different from?
Ooh, you're asking the wrong bloke, but I know a couple of people who might know.
I'm asking, who's the expert there?
They're both experts, Neville and Terry. So, Neville, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, you differ from because it's a way, and it's similar to. It's bringing you closer. The different to is illogical, and it's as with most ghastly things that come from America.
But I'm different to you when it comes to this, aren't I, Terry?
You are indeed, and I think at the American one, it's different than, isn't it?
But does Neville have a point that different to or different than are illogical?
No, I wouldn't have said so.
Come on.
But one is in comparison. It's how the comparison occurs. It's easier to get it with the word compare, which is the other side of this coin. Where if you have compare to, you're likening something, and if you have compare with, you're offering an assessment, a relative assessment.
But you can't say compared from, can you?
You cannot.
No.
So you can say different.
Well, you can say it. And people would know what you meant. But
no, they wouldn't actually. Not. I don't think they would know what I meant. But you cannot say different to.
It's different from, isn't it?
It's different from.
That's right.
I mean, you can't keep saying yes, but you can say it because people know what you mean. If we're talking grammar here.
You're absolutely right. Then I can't understand your comparison then, Terry, with compared to and compared from. I can't understand when...
I was reaching for a comparison, trying to find, while I was busily trying to think of a way that different to made sense.
Yeah, but you failed miserably, didn't you?
Well, I can do indifferent to. I'm struggling with different.
That's a different word.
Julia.
That's a different word.
Exactly.
It's got no relation to it at all.
No, I know. I was trying desperately to buy time while I found one that made sense.
You see, the problem...
There isn't any excuse at all.
There's no excuse. I think you're absolutely right.
I'm just a mere mortal little woman.
Me too. Little blow.
Anyway, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It cannot possibly be anything but different from. And you'll even get the Telegraph, the Times, your local free newspaper, people in conversation, BBC, everybody using this awful different to.
And the BBC is no different to any other major organisation.
Okay, stop doing that, Terry. You're being naughty now.
I'm sorry to bring any other...
Johnson, this lady is a class in number. We want more of her.
Yeah, of course. But Julia, why do you think people make that mistake? Why is it such a common mistake, do you think?
Because they're not being taught correctly.
But
we're going back to grammar, we're going back to Shakespeare. Somebody said, oh, yes, well, you can go back 200 years. And one of you say, no, but Shakespeare would never split infinitives, so you can go back 400 years. It's always been different from, and all of a sudden it creeps in. You get everybody using it from politicians in the House of Commons, do you see, Prime Minister's Question Time. Everybody says different too.
But it's not because they're not being taught correctly, Julia, because otherwise they would make the mistake with so many other grammatical points, whereas this one specifically is a common one, and you said it creeps into the language. We wouldn't allow it to creep into the language if it offended our hearing considerably. People would be correcting you each time, but when it creeps into the language and it makes no big deal of a difference, even though it's grammatically incorrect, I wonder whether people absorb it because they're thinking, well, I know what it means, different from, different to, what's the difference? They get
corrupted, Doc.
They may do, but they don't get corrupted universally throughout the language. I'm saying there are certain phrases or certain grammatical incorrectness that we absorb because the logic of the rule is no longer applicable, or it's no longer in stone. The logic of the rule is more flexible over a period of time, is what...
People
sorry, Julia.
In the written word, all right, if you say that people will slip into it verbally, fine. But editors in newspapers, sub-editors, shouldn't allow it to be in the printed word.
Why shouldn't they, if everybody's saying it in the written word, in the spoken word, why shouldn't they allow it in the printed word? Should the printed word not reflect the spoken language?
Because you're now contradicting yourself in saying that people haven't been taught incorrectly. It's just slipped in. Well, if it's just slipped in, it must have been just slipped in by people teaching the wrong way.
Fair enough. I think you made a valid point. And the people that are teaching it... Oh, no, Terry.
No,
Terry disagrees.
I've spent some time looking while you were chatting. And according to Oxford's grammar guides, and I don't think you can get better than that, all three versions are correct. Aesthetically, we find them differently pleasing, and we find different uses for them, or different sectors of society find different uses for them. But the final line here is, some people, where are we? There's little difference in sense between the three expressions, and all of them are used by respected writers.
But does it say they're all three grammatically correct? Is that what it says? Julia, how about that then?
What date is this?
Very sad world.
Hang on, Julia.
This is where what's its fall slips. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure. Terry, do you know? Neville, do you know?
Standards are slipping, even now with grammar, because many people...
Why were standards right when you learnt English and they're not right now?
Yes, say, oh, well, that's all right now because everybody's using it.
Did you hear what Terry said? He said, why were standards right when you learnt English, but they're not right now, Julia?
Well, that's a very good point.
That's a very good point. Let's leave that one. Let's leave that one hanging.
I really should say good night, shouldn't I?
No, not at all. But thank you. Your contribution has been immense for this conversation. Thank you very much. 0500 909 693. We've got another 15, 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour of this conversation to go. So pick up the phone and give us a call now and tell us what you feel about these rigid rules of grammar. Should we always apply them or perhaps not?